Hi everyone, it's James here. How are you all today? This is going to be a contest entry for Martin Parrott. Check out Martin if you haven't already. I'll put the link up there or up there. British collector, good friend of mine via the VC. Met up with him a while ago. He's doing a channel contest, subscribers contest. It was a bit of a sort of secret hidden one. He kind of introduced it halfway through his video, and so far as I know, there's only been one entry so far. That was John Bellamy. Hi, John. So I thought I'd better get my entry in. Now, Martin's contest is kind of slightly unusual. He wants us to... Okay, so the prize, he's offering a selection of LPs, and he wants us to basically tell him which one we would like and explain why in a video. And so... I thought I would expand this a little bit and just talk a bit about a topic which is kind of interesting, hopefully, with regards to me and Martin, because Martin is a kind of record dealer, you know, to an extent. He goes to record fairs, you know, he sells records. He also swaps records quite a lot. And I know John in his video as well, he made reference to Martin's habit of selling Frank Zappa records, and John mentioned that it was something which you know, he finds deeply mystifying. This idea that you'd get a record in your collection by Frank Zappa, and rather than keeping it, you would actually sell it. And I must admit, I'm more on John's side of the fence on this one. And I suppose what it comes down to, and that's what I was going to kind of expand this video into a discussion of, is, you know, what kind of record buyer are you? Are you somebody who buys records in order to sort of keep them, regardless of what they are? I know Graham Watson at Cracking Vinyl, he never gets rid of anything that he buys, even stuff that he doesn't like. It all goes on the shelf. I suppose it's the difference between, you know, trying to decide whether you're amassing a record library or a record collection. And I know that there are some people out there on the VC who talk a lot about wanting to kind of downscale and prune their record collection, get down to the point where you've only got records that you think are great, and that's absolutely fine. I'm more on John's side of the fence, and Graham. I do sometimes get rid of records. I will send some records back to the charity shops that I bought them from if I don't think I'm going to listen to them again. But I can honestly say, hand on heart, I have never ever sold a record in my life. I've never swapped a record. I wouldn't really know how to go about it. I don't have a seller's mentality, or I don't have enough of a business head on my shoulders. You know, to me, records are things which come into my possession, and if at all possible, I'll keep them, even if I don't necessarily like them, because it might be that somewhere down the line, you know, I might grow to like that record, or I might listen to it one day and decide that I can hear something in it that I couldn't before. I have had experiences in the past where I have got rid of records and I've had to go and you know, literally buy them back from the charity shop that I've sent them back to, and 9 times out of 10, you know, 10 times out of 10, if I get rid of a record, I will regret it afterwards. My big issue is with storage space. You know, I don't have a great deal of storage, so I do have to be a bit careful about what I buy, because I do have a tendency to keep hold of things. Anyway, really long-winded way of approaching the subject, but of the records that Martin showed in the video, the one that oh, my alarm's going off, hang on a second. Of the records that Martin showed in his video, the one that jumped out at me was by Frank Zappa. Now, the record that Martin has by Zappa is called Thingfish. And, okay, so it was a triple album box set originally in 1984. I don't think the one Martin has is a box set. But the reason that one jumped out at me, and I know Martin has sold Zappa records in the past, it sounds like he has a slightly troublesome relationship with Zappa, but hand on heart, I can honestly say I have never owned a Zappa record, ever, in any format. I've never owned a single album on CD, never owned a single one on vinyl, never had a cassette, and I've got to be honest, I've hardly heard any of his music. And that was the other thing I wanted to branch out to discuss briefly in this video. I know it's been touched on before, but this idea that you have these kind of blank spot artists that you've just, for some reason, you've just never clicked with them or you've never been exposed to their music. It's very strange from my point of view, because I've always tried to check out what I would consider to be historically significant records or artists. Let's explore Bob Dylan, let's explore the Stones, let's explore this, that and the other. But for some reason, I just have never got round to Zappa. And I don't exactly know why. Back in the 90s, I shared a house with a friend who had Joe's Garage, and which is a box set, I think, isn't it? And I do remember listening to parts of that, and it didn't particularly grab me. It was kind of interesting enough for me to have, say, if I'd have seen any Zappa records around, I would probably have picked them up back then. It didn't particularly grab me, but I thought, okay. But the thing is, I never, ever saw any of his records anywhere. And on the very rare occasions when I did, they would always be crazy expensive. And that's still often the case now. I mean, I would certainly never see a Zappa record in a charity shop or a thrift store. I don't really go to car boot sales. I go to very few record shows. I mean, the last record show I went to in Manchester, I didn't see any Zappa albums there. So it's a kind of combination of things, a combination of you hear a small bit of the music, but it doesn't particularly grab you, and then you just never see that person's records anyway, and if you do, they tend to be very expensive. So that's how an artist will kind of slip through the net in a way. And I don't know what it is. I mean, the stuff I've heard a little bit of Apostrophe, because I know that's a very well-regarded album. Like I said, I've heard a bit of Joe's Garage and maybe a couple of others, but in general, when I listen to Zappa, I just kind of hear this very kind of ironic, it almost sounds a bit sort of sarcastic, taking the mickey out of rock music, or just kind of being a bit clever clogs. Things I quite like some clever clog type bands. I like 10cc, I like Steely Dan, but there's something about Zappa, when I hear his music, I don't particularly warm to it. Now, this album that Martin is giving away, this kind of nails, what I think. The storyline is inspired by Broadway theatre, AIDS, eugenics, conspiracy theories, feminism, homosexuality, African-American culture. Okay, fair enough. It involves an evil, racist Prince theatre critic who creates a disease intended to eradicate African-Americans and homosexuals. The disease is tested on prisoners who are turned into mammy nuns, led by the story's narrator, Thingfish. The story within a story is a satire of a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant couple, etc., etc., etc. I mean, I'm a big fan of rock and roll and jazz and music, but reading that just does not leap off the page and make me go, right, I really want to hear this music. I wouldn't buy that record on the strength of that blurb. It just sounds very heavy going and very hard to grasp, and I'm not sure it's my kind of thing. But Martin's giving away this record and he doesn't want it, so this is an ideal opportunity for me to get a Zappa album. Now, I know John Bellamy has also said that he wouldn't mind having that record, so I'm really not bothered. If John ends up having it and not me, that's absolutely fine, Martin. But I'm curious about the Zappa record, and it's not something I would buy, but maybe this is the album that I've been looking for that will get me into Zappa. Who knows? And what I thought I would do, actually, in your honour, Martin, is if you do send me that record and I don't particularly enjoy it, I promise I will attempt either to sell it or to trade it and swap it, and that will be the first time that I've ever done that, so that might be quite an interesting exercise. Now, if I don't end up getting the Zappa record, the other one that appealed to me, I wouldn't mind the jazz one that you showed at the end that had Albert Ayler on. That looked quite interesting, and/or the record that had Nissin Sawhney on it. That one looked good too. But yeah, the Zappa one is my first choice, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. I tried to kind of expand it a little bit and get into some other areas, just talking about the difference between collectors and archivists, I suppose, and why it is that you sometimes end up never listening to a particular musician's music, never hearing it, never buying it. Yeah, that's what this video has ended up being. So I will leave you there. Check out Martin's channel if you haven't already, and I'll catch you all later. Bye bye.